Italy has introduced the strictest arms export restrictions among its allies regarding military supplies to Israel, according to Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Speaking before the Italian Senate, Meloni announced that her government had immediately suspended all new licenses for exporting military materials to Israel.
After the start of Israeli operations in Gaza, the Italian government immediately suspended the granting of any new export license for weapons materials to Israel. Pursuant to Law 185 of 1990, therefore, all contracts signed after October 7th have not been applied. The export licenses to Israel, which were instead authorized before October 7th, have all been analyzed on a case-by-case basis.
Meloni emphasized that Italy's measures go beyond those of other European countries like France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, which are still assessing new arms export licenses on a case-by-case basis. In contrast, Italy has imposed a complete halt on new licenses. Meloni's decision comes ahead of a European Union summit, where the escalating conflict is expected to dominate discussions. She confirmed that Italy will continue to review existing arms export licenses to ensure they align with Italy's strict humanitarian principles. In addition, Meloni announced plans to visit Lebanon on October 18th, just days after Israeli forces attacked UN peacekeeping bases in the country, where over 1,000 Italian troops serve under the UNIFIL mission. Italy, along with other EU nations, condemned the attacks and rejected Israel's demands for the withdrawal of peacekeepers. Meloni criticized Israel's actions as violations of UN mandates and affirmed that Italy opposes the withdrawal of peacekeepers based solely on Israel's unilateral demands. She argued that such a move would endanger the UN mission and impede international diplomatic efforts.
We believe that the attitude of Israel's forces is completely unjustified, besides being a blatant violation of the provisions of UN Security Council Resolution 1701. On the other hand, we cannot overlook the violation of the same resolution carried out over the years by Hezbollah, which has worked to militarize the area under UNIFIL's jurisdiction. The position of the Italian government is that we must work towards the full implementation of the resolution by strengthening the capabilities of UNIFIL and the Lebanese armed forces.
As Israel continues its military operations, it is facing mounting international pressure to moderate its actions from other allies as well. The United States has urged Israel to take immediate steps to improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza or face potential limitations on military aid. French President Emmanuel Macron has also voiced concerns, warning Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not to ignore UN decisions during a weekly ministerial meeting. Macron reminded Netanyahu that Israel was created by a UN decision and has suggested an arms embargo a week earlier on Israel, an idea that was met with resistance from the Israeli leader. Macron had also criticized Israel during his UNGA address.
Israel cannot, without consequence, just expand its operations to Lebanon. France demands that everyone respect their obligations along the blue line. We will therefore act to ensure a diplomatic voice can be heard, a voice that is indispensable for sparing civilians and preventing a regional conflagration. The war that Israel is waging in Gaza has gone on too long. The tens of thousands of civilian victims in Palestine cannot be justified. There is no explanation possible for this. So this war needs to stop and a ceasefire needs to happen as soon as possible, at the same time as the hostages are released, and humanitarian assistance needs to arrive en masse in Gaza.
As Israel fights the forces of barbarism led by Iran, all civilized countries should be standing firmly by Israel's side. Yet President Macron and other Western leaders are now calling for arms embargoes against Israel. Shame on them. Is Iran imposing an arms embargo on Hezbollah, on the Houthis, on Hamas, and on its other proxies? Of course not. This axis of terror stands together.
Britain had also suspended sale of a raft of arms components being used by Israel in Gaza after concluding there is a real risk weapons could be used in violation of international humanitarian law in September. The UK said that 30 licenses, including parts for fighter planes, helicopters and drones, will be immediately put on hold. This came after a review commissioned straight after Labour's landslide election victory in July. The government concluded there have been possible breaches on humanitarian access and the treatment of detainees. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer also took to the UNJ stage to criticise Israel.
Stop the violence. Step back from the brink. We need to see an immediate ceasefire to provide space for a diplomatic settlement. And we are working with all partners to that end. Because further escalation serves no one. It offers nothing but more suffering for innocent people on all sides, and the prospect of a wider war that no one can control, and with consequences that none of us can foresee.
Italy's firm stance, along with that of its European allies and the US, reflects growing dissatisfaction with Netanyahu's government over the continued operation in the region, increasing tensions between Israel and its European partners. Criticism from these countries after two more NATO nations, Germany and Turkey, continue to voice concerns over Israel's actions on Gaza.